Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to another video. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me here today. So I'm really excited. We're here right now in drizzly old England, but don't worry, it's not to last. We're going to head over to the Alps. We're going to join me on the Tour de Mont Blanc, where I actually completed the bulk of this review, but I've lost the beginning footage and the end footage. So we're back here in drizzly England, but it's all right. We like England, don't we? It's all right place. So we're talking about this. This is the Terra Nova Laser Compact one. So it's a one-person tent, 3-season design. It's a tunnel design. It's supposed to be super compact and sleek, great for wild camping, if you're doing adventure racing, if you're bikepacking and cycle touring, if you're hiking and backpacking. This is meant to be the tent just for that, bar when you're out and about in winter. So I've been using this tent throughout the season, and basically I wanted to give you a rundown of how I've got on with this tent. This is going to be 100% honest. I do want to say right out from the front, Terra Nova did supply me with this tent. They've asked me to make this review, so here I am. Hello, I'm not getting paid for it. They just sent me the tent, so I'm making the review. It is going to be 100% honest. Everything is my own opinion. I've not been asked to highlight anything in particular, so let's get started. You order this tent, this is what you get. So we'll look at putting it up, or you'll see it up when I'm in the Alps, happy days, and I'll be taking it down here so you can see how it takes down. I want to basically give you all the information about this tent. So lightweight, what does that mean? Basically it weighs in at just over 900 grams. I have swapped out the pegs actually for some pegs that I prefer, so we'll have a look at those in a minute. But if you order it, this is what you'll get. So the pack size is 30 by 14 centimeters, so it's super small. It comes in this little stuff sack, which has got a handle on the end, which I think is really helpful if you've got gloves on. Just means you can pull everything out and shove it in nice and easily. That being said, the fabrics are quite delicate, and we'll break down the fabric information in a minute. But this is made of the same fabric as the fly sheet, so it's 20 denier fabric, and then the draw cord here is made of the same stuff that the guy line's made of, which is pretty thin, but obviously they're going to be compromising on some things in order to get this tent as light as it is. So it is, you can pitch the outer on its own. You can't pitch the inner on its own, but you can pitch them both together. So it's a dual pitch design as well as a tunnel design. So let's get some of the stuff out. So first thing that comes out for me then is the the poles. So these poles are DAC alloy poles. You can see the main pole, the central pole, is this nice pale blue. I actually really like this blue. It's kind of like baby blue actually. Maybe I don't like baby blue. It's a nice shiny blue. It all pulls together nice and easy. So that's the pole. I'm not going to put that all up now, but that's what it looks like. And then you should get two other poles as well. So these are the end poles, and we'll see that in a minute when it's all pitched. So these basically sit either end of the tent in order to hoist up the bottom end of it essentially. So they're 8.7 millimeters, I believe, in diameter. You don't get any spare poles, nothing to repair it with. If you have a crack or something, which I have done in the past with my Hillyberg tents, nothing there. So if you want spares and supplies, then just make sure you're packing that yourself. As for the bag that they come in, I mean, that is as light as a feather. It's unbelievable. Again, same fabric as the fly sheet, that 20 denier fabric, just so light, packs down into absolutely nothing. I mean, the size of like a 1p coin. Okay, 2p coin. But that's your tent pole. Up next then, we've got this little repair kit thing which it came with. So it's nothing to do with the poles themselves, it's just fabric. So it's basically a couple of patches. If you get a tear, you could possibly glue it on, but no glue supplied, no tape supplied. Literally just some spare pieces of fabric there. I think it's nice that they added that. One thing, sorry, I forgot to say that this tent retails at £450. Ouch. Of course, shopping around you can get it cheaper, but this is it's a small family-run company. They are very ethical and sustainable in their processing. They obviously want to try and give everybody involved in the tent manufacture process sort of rights and responsibilities and care. There we go, care and compassion. A lot of these big companies, obviously, in order to get things cheaper, you lose some of the quality, you lose some of the care and compassion shown towards the team all around the world in order to manufacture these tents. So that is one thing that I really like about Terra Nova, is everything is based down home, and they know exactly where everything comes from, everybody involved. I definitely recommend, if you're interested in finding out more in that, just get in touch. They will definitely help you out. That is a side note. Again, I've not been told to mention that, just my personal experience, and I want to fill you in with that because we're all about honesty here. So let's get out the actual tent itself. So here we go. Oh, I should actually be quite careful with this. I've been very paranoid with this. The tent fabric, the fly sheet, just feels so fragile. And this is, as I keep saying, 20 denier fabric, and then it's coated in this watershed silicone coating, or silicone, I never really know how to say that word. Basically it's coated with a sort of waterproofing. One thing you'll see me mention quite a few times when I'm over in the Alps is to do with the sleeve that goes round the pole, because the way that this has been coated, it's not waterproof. It is waterproof, but the seams haven't been able to be taped, as many tents usually are. So essentially they're not super robust, and if it's real heavy rain, then the water's going to come in. So you get this sleeve that goes over the pole. We'll have a look at all of this in a minute, and then hopefully that just protects the seams. This tent has been designed very carefully so that most of the seams are not exposed. They're sort of tucked underneath. The way the tent designs, they're protected from the elements, but of course they have put other things in place. You'll see how I feel about that in the Alps. It frustrates me because I just think this tent would be winning, in my opinion. I have no awards to offer, but it would, I don't know, I think that would just make this my go-to tent all the time. But one thing I did find with the sleeve cover, and again this will all make sense in a minute when you see it, is I finished the hike, the Tour de Mont Blanc, and I came down into Chamonix and I wanted to film my final piece, but I couldn't because there was a huge storm, thunder and lightning, 2 days, and it leaked. So the water did come through the seams. Yes, I had the pole cover on, yes, I had it on properly, but you also see that it broke. So the strings that tied it on, they broke, and therefore I just did the best I could, improvise. Obviously that's what we do as hikers and outdoor people, but yes, it did leak. So that for me was a real heartbreak moment. Anyway, so we'll have a chat about that again in a minute. That's the outer anyway, and then the inner, again, is super soft, lightweight fabric, really nice, optimistic orange, yellow even, colorblind, yellow. Really like this color, feels so good. You've got this nice, robust, this is sealed, the bathtub design, the ground sheet is sealed. So that's that there, and that's sort of basically the fabric. You can see I've got the inner and the outer attached together already, so I can pitch that super quickly in a moment. And then the only other thing I wanted to show you is something I'm quite confused about, actually. So the tent that I got, this tent, it came with these. Basically what I call D&V tent pegs. Really old school, very heavy tent pegs. You just, I mean, I haven't used these in years and years and years, and I was absolutely shocked that it came with this. However, the other day my friend bought one of these and it didn't come with these. It came with these super thin, lightweight, basically wires that they were pushing into the ground, and we tried to put them into the ground and they would just bend and snap, and it was absolutely appalling. I don't have any video of those, I don't think. But yeah, so when it came with these, I was just like, oh my goodness me, what on earth? For a £450 tent, I'm not having, like, these are the preschool of pegs. So basically all I did was swap them out for these, which are my Hilleberg Ennen tents. They're just, what are they, DAC probably. DAC Hilleberg tents. You can use whatever pegs you want, really, and I know people sort of customize their kit, so I just swapped them out for some different pegs. So that was one thing that was quite confusing to me, because I wasn't sure if it was supposed to come with these, or if I don't really know what's going on there. I don't know what pegs it's actually supposed to come with, whether it's the super thin ones or whether it's these super heavy ones. But anyway, I use my own pegs, simple as that. So the next thing I want to do is basically just get this pitched up. So we'll head over to the Alps now. Hello from the Alps. And then we'll come back here and I'll show you how to take it down, and we'll just finish with one final conclusion. Welcome to the Alps. So I'm in Switzerland. I've just crossed over from Italy. I'm on the Tour de Mont Blanc, and I wanted to show you the Terra Nova tent whilst it's pitched up just before the sun goes down. So everything's just chucked in here because, as I say, I want to get this filmed before it gets dark. This is the tent here. Just ignore that. That's my Sawyer micro squeeze, which is broken and it's leaking water everywhere. So you can see what it looks like when it's all pitched up. Everything pulled tight. So there's the guy lines on the end. The removable pole was there at the back end. So you see these guys, they come out. So you can put them in, but I actually tend to put it away with the poles in because it gives it something substantial to sort of roll it away with. So here's some footage of me putting the tent away, and you can see sort of how I just keep those intact, even if it means I have to put them in place again later. Would be quite cool if they had a little thing sewn in here so that it could be actually properly, like it could stay in, but that's all right, no worries. And then you can see the guy lines here, just your standard zipper. And these are my Hilleberg Enon pegs. So I didn't use the actual tent pegs that came with this, which were like standard tent pegs. So I've got these guys because they're lighter. So you can see the fabric pulls tight quite nicely. Then I've added on the additional sleeve here, which has already broken. It broke on day 2 of using it. So underneath here there's these, just basically the same guy line stuff, and you tie it on underneath, and then you pop it in underneath here, or just wrap it underneath and pull it tight with this toggle. And the idea is it then covers this seam which could potentially leak, and it gives you these additional guy line points, which I have to put out really here because I don't know what the weather's gonna do. Seeing those brewing clouds over there, but we'll see. It'll be stronger in the wind. And again, just tied out here. So you've got the nice elastic points here, which are really cool. I quite like this actually, having the elastic from the inside one and then pulling that to the pegging out point. Nice and easy to use with gloves, as are these adjustment points. You just literally pull it nice and tight. There we go, got it. So just pull it nice and tight. Now make sure it's nice and tight. That can probably be a little bit stronger actually. And then just to show you inside for space. So actually before that, so basically the door is supposed to peg to a toggle thing there. I don't know if you can see that. But I just find that really fiddly and faffy. So I actually just carry a peg and it rolls up really nicely and it gets it just out of the way. Super simple. And then, so you can see the porch here. So that's my Osprey Exos 48. That's what I'm hiking with at the moment. As I say, this will all be in here when wild camping, because if the weather does come in, I want to make sure I can just grab my bag and get moving. Obviously, water bottles. You can see my stove fits quite nicely. Everything fits fine. And then around the back, you've actually got space as well. So you can store, you know, like I've got my tripod and poles there, just all folded away, which is quite nice. And I put my boots here when I shut the door. You'll see what that looks like right now. So this is me inside of the tent, just looking at the porch, how everything sort of fits. So it's all good. Hello, welcome back to present day. So you can see at the end as well, you've got that ventilation point. So that sort of rolls down, which is quite good. I just keep those permanently rolled down. And the same is on the inner, half of it rolls down. In fact, that doesn't got a toggle point, I don't think, but it's just good because it sort of vents. And you can also see how the fabric on the outer doesn't touch the floor. So that just aids with the ventilation a little bit. And I found ventilation and condensation on this tent to be really, really good when compared to the Hilleberg tents that I use. And if anyone's ever looked at anything that I do, I'm just permanently complaining about the condensation, how it could be a beautiful still night like this, and everything will be soaking wet in my tent. It's a nightmare. But I've been using this guys, or this one, in some conditions where you think you would get a lot of condensation, and it's just not, it's not manifested like that at all. It's been really great. So I'm very happy with that, and I think that is just because the fabric doesn't come down to the floor. I don't know. Anyway, let's have a look at the inner. So the inner, you can see we've got this nice vibrant yellow. I'll just zip the door up so you can see that half of it is mesh, which is quite cool. I actually leave it half unzipped at night, pretty much like this. Again, that's just aiding ventilation, so that works quite well for me. The thing that I get annoyed with the door, I mean, there's pros and cons. It's quite great that it opens up completely, but in the winter, I can imagine if you're trying to change wet gear in this porch, then you're probably going to end up with wet gear inside. That just doesn't seem practical. And also because this goes on the floor, it gets so messy inside. You just get so much stuff picked up because there's sort of nothing really to catch it. It just doesn't stay sort of high enough. It's not substantial. The bathtub isn't strong enough to stay high to stop the dirt getting in. So that's one thing that's not so great about that. But I really like that it's just easy access and you can have the whole thing open. It's very freeing. Obviously, as I say, pros and cons to that. So then inside the tent, just for space, it is quite cramped, to be honest, but it is a lightweight tent, so what do you expect? There's no pockets, nothing like that. 8 for a cot, he comes with me on all my checks. So you can see the bathtub design does come up the side just about, which is good. So if this ground was to get damp, then hopefully that'll prevent the water seeping through this stuff. But you can see, so I have just my clothes bag underneath this X-Lite thermarest, so that gives me a bit of a pillow. But literally, so my face can basically touch this fabric, and then my feet, you can see right at the end. And this is a medium, so if you look up the size of the medium of this thermarest, you'll be able to see pretty much how big how little the space is in here. But what is quite nice is you get this sort of additional space to the side, or if I shove that way, then I've got this space here, so you can store stuff in here, which is quite good. I can just about get my camera in. I tend to have, you know, stuff charging here or whatever, notepads, maps and things, so that they're accessible. So that's kind of what it looks like inside. As for space, and then just to show you how the inner and outer are adjustable, so it's basically just all elastic. So you can see the toggles here, they just go in that piece of elastic, and it just goes all the way around there. The one on the end, this bottom one here, just keeps coming unpegged if I if I put the inner and outer away together. So that does keep coming unclipped, which is quite annoying, so I have to then do that. These aren't the easiest I can imagine to use with gloves, to be honest. They're quite fiddly, and they're not as secure as like a plastic ring, because the plastic ring isn't going to change shape, whereas the elastic does. But they do the job. They keep it nice and tight. And then you've got a clip actually at the top end, and then 2 toggle points either end on the ends of the tent there. Okay, so I just wanted to show you the zips. So the zips on the door are really, really tiny. They're just not glove friendly at all. But there's this one thing that winds me up, and it's this. Look, it's just constantly catches on this piece of plastic. So you have to sort of put your finger there and do it so your fingers stop. Oh, it still gets stuck. Do it so it stops getting stuck. Oh my gosh. But basically, if it's pouring down, this is not easy to get in and out of your tent very quickly. But you've got this piece of Velcro here that sort of holds it all shut. But that's just a talking point, because the zip is constantly getting stuck. It just really winds me up. But the thing that winds me up most is this. Just this whole sleeve thing that constantly falls off, even though I put it on right, but I need to move that guy line actually. I just don't understand why you wouldn't make a tent waterproof. In the night, you're trying to sleep, the weather can change, especially if you're in the mountains. So why have to faff around putting this sleeve on, especially if it's cold or if it's wet or if it's snowing, because it could be unexpectedly, it might not be planned. Why have to put a sleeve on to make sure the tent is completely sealed? And then it's just a seam as well, like, or a sleeve, sorry. It's just a sleeve. It's a piece of plastic covering the plastic. It doesn't make sense to me, really. I just wish that they'd incorporated that bit as being fully watertight like the rest of the tent, or, you know, as watertight as the rest of the tent. And then basically you could just put the tent up, get in, do your stuff, and not have to fiddle around with tying things off, making sure everything's nice and tight. And if it's cold and wet, you know, you're just going to be even more miserable. So this is definitely going to be a summer tent for me, because I don't want to be faffing around with that. So basically, to summarize this, let me just get out of the sun a minute. I've had enough of that. So to summarize this, wow, that's a nice view. I think this is a great tent. I think the weight is incredible. I think there's some things that they really shouldn't have compromised on though, and that is, for example, the waterproofing. I think they should come with lighter pegs, and I think that perhaps there should just be a normal toggle for the door, so you roll it up and you can just toggle it open like that, rather than have to try and tie it to the inner, and then if there's condensation or if it's wet, then it's going to drip inside, and I just don't think that's very good, really. But otherwise, I love the fact that there's great ventilation options. I like the fact that the door opens completely, even though I don't think that would be very helpful in winter. I like the porch space. I think it's great. I think, you know, the guy lines are great. This is quite sporadic, really. I think the bathtub design is just right. Obviously for a lighter tent, as I say, you are going to compromise on some things, but I think this tent is, you know, it's pretty good. I find it very comfortable as well. It just about works space-wise for me. I mean, I'm on a 10-day trek, not just doing Tour de Mont Blanc. I've got some other things going on as well. So, you know, I'm quite happy for this to be home for that length of time. Everything I have fits in it. But if you're perhaps, say, a larger person, 6 foot, then you might struggle. It might be quite difficult to get your roll mat and your sleeping bag and all of that stuff in without your face sort of constantly being massaged by the inner tent. So there's just some things to sort of think about. And now what I'm going to do is just show you what I do to take it down. I mentioned the poles either end, so we'll have a look at that. So here I am taking down the tent. Now I pretty much always just start by unpegging it at one end, and then I work my way to the side, but essentially I always leave one end pegged in. If it's windy, just means that the tent's not going to blow away, hopefully. So up next then, I tend to remove the pole, so I do that very carefully, making sure it doesn't come apart, and then I put it away in its bag. And then basically I just grab the 2 poles, I try and leave them in the end, and like flick the fabric out of the way, because obviously if it's wet, it's been raining, I want to keep the outer on the outside as much as possible. I could take down the inner and the outer separately, but obviously just for demonstration I'm not here. And then stuff it in the bag, and what you can see is if you have the poles, or you roll the fabric up around the poles, it doesn't necessarily fit in the stuff sack, but for me this works better if I put it in my dry bag, and then I can sit on the bottom of my rucksack. It's just got something more substantial. And that is it. Terra Nova Laser Compact 1, job done.